अस्सलामुअलैकुम स्टूडेंट्स। तो आज हम आवर एनवायरनमेंट के रिलेटेड डिस्कस करते हैं। व्हाट इज़ एन एनवायरनमेंट? इट्स अ फिजिकल, केमिकल एंड बायोलॉजिकल conditions of the system in which organism lives. Anything around we people is called environment. So what is ecosystem? Ecosystem, it is an interaction between all living organisms that we called biotic factors in an area, in a particular area, with its physical environment. That physical environment, that's called abiotic components. So this ecosystem, it contains biotic and abiotic component which interact in a particular area. So what are biotic components of ecosystem? These are living organisms, and abiotic means physical factors like temperature, rainfall, wind, soil, etc. So what are the types of this ecosystem? The ecosystem may be natural and artificial. What is natural ecosystem? Which is produced by the nature, like forests, ponds, lakes, grasslands, oceans. These are by nature. And artificial, which are man-made ecosystems like gardens. We prepare gardens, that's artificial, crop fields, aquariums. Now the organisms can be grouped as producers. What are the producers? Producers are the organisms which manufacture their own food from the raw material, like green plants, certain bacteria which can produce their own food by the process of photosynthesis. You can see green plants which we call, which the process by the process photosynthesis they produce their own food, so they are called producers. In which raw materials carbon dioxide and water is used to form the starch and oxygen as a byproduct. The reaction occurs in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. So carbon dioxide and water combines to form the starch with the liberation of oxygen. And this whole process is called photosynthesis. Already you have learned about it. Now after producers, the producers which we may say green plants and bacteria, they are called producers as they manufacture their own food. They are also called autotrophs. Autocosalotrophs synthesis. Decomposers. The decomposers are microorganisms. They are bacteria and fungi which break down the complex substances into simpler compounds. They can decompose the natural material. Now, what are consumers? The organisms which cannot make their own food. So, they are depend on plants directly or indirectly. If directly they are depend on plants, indirectly they may be depend on animals, and animals are depend on plants. So these are called consumers. Now these consumers can be classified as herbivores. Herbivores, simply we may say that these eat plants, plant eaters like rabbit, grasshopper, cow, goat. Next one, that's carnivores. So these we called herbivores, also primary consumers. Carnivores are called secondary or tertiary consumers. They are flesh eaters. So they eat flesh like lion, tiger, fox, etc. So consumers we may call it as secondary or tertiary consumers. Next one, that's omnivores. So omnivores, the organisms which eat plants, their products as well as animals and their flesh. So they can eat plants, animals and also their products. So these are humans, dogs, cat, crow. They can eat plants, plant products, animals and their products. Parasites, the organisms which live on the body of other organisms and draw nourishment from them. So parasites live on other living body that we call the hosts, like lice, tickets, etc. Or cuscuta is a plant parasite. These live on plant body. Next one, that is food chain. What is food chain? It is the sequence of transfer of energy in the form of food from organism to organism in an ecosystem. So one organism eats one and other organism eats another organisms. So they form the chain that we call the food chain, like terrestrial food chain. So we in terrestrial grass fields we see grass which is eaten by grasshopper. So this grass is primary consumer or producer. So it is eaten by grasshopper, and grasshopper is eaten by the frog. So this is primary consumer, secondary, tertiary consumer. Frog is eaten by snake and snake is eaten by eagle. So this food chain you will find in grasslands, terrestrial. Next one, aquatic. Aquatic phytoplanktons in water. So this phytoplankton, that is the primary consumer here. These are eaten by the larvae of insects. These insects are in turn eaten by small fish and